Ayatollah Khamenei tweeted almost every day, "Death to Israel."
Whom should we surrender to? Iran is not a nation to surrender.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
The Iran-Israel war has now entered the 9th day. Now, with both countries launching fresh attacks on each other, let's take a look at all the latest developments we have so far. Iranian media reported explosions in the city of Isfahan, where the Islamic Republic has a key nuclear facility. Isfahan is home to a number of important military and nuclear facilities. A major airbase and factories associated with Iranian drone and other military production are also located in Isfahan. Now, the IDF said its fighter jets struck head of IRGC's drone unit a week after killing his predecessor. In a post on X, the IDF says it eliminated the commander of the 2nd Unmanned Aerial Vehicle Unit in the Revolutionary Guards Air Force. Now, this comes after Iran launched a fresh salvo of missiles at Israel. Iranian missiles were intercepted in the skies over Tel Aviv. Skies in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank also lit up as Israeli air defense systems intercepted the new barrage of Iranian missiles. Projectiles could be seen in the sky as sirens sounded just after midnight. Meanwhile, the Israeli military announced that it launched a new wave of attacks against missile storage and launch infrastructure in central Iran. This comes after Israel said that Iran launched new airstrikes in central parts of Israel, including Modin and Tel Aviv. Israeli media says a fire has been reported in an apartment in central Israel, apparently as a result of being hit by missile parts following an interception. However, no injuries or casualties have been reported yet. Amidst the escalating conflict, US President Donald Trump has warned Iran that it has a maximum of 2 weeks to avoid possible US strikes. Now, Trump's comments come a day after he said that he would make a decision within a fortnight to whether to take military action against Iran or not.
Does Iran have 2 weeks, or could you strike before that? Are you essentially giving them a 2-week timeline?
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Furthermore, amidst reports about Israel seeking bunker-buster bombs to take out Iran's Fordo nuclear facility, US President Donald Trump has said that Israel has limited capability and capacity to strike and destroy Iran's underground nuclear sites, adding that it won't be necessary.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said that they had the capacity to take out all of Iran's nuclear facilities. So what role would the U.S. be able to play, and why would they, if Israel says that they have all of the abilities, their own military?
I'm not sure he said that, but they really have a very limited capacity. They could break through a little section, but they can't go down very deep. They don't have that capacity, and we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it won't be necessary. Maybe it won't be necessary.
However, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that strikes against Iran will continue for as long as it takes. Speaking to reporters at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Rehovot, Netanyahu further asserted that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
As long as it takes. That's the answer. As long as it takes, because we face an existential danger, a dual existential danger. One from 20,000 such rockets, 20,000, not one. This is one rocket, one missile. And the other is, of course, atomic bombs in the hands of this mad regime.
IDF Chief General Eyal Zamir has echoed Netanyahu's sentiments and asked Israelis to prepare for a prolonged campaign against Iran, indicating that a quick end to the Israeli campaign was highly unlikely. And for more, we're now being joined by Ben Aris from Berlin. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of BNE IntelliNews. Thank you so much for joining us in the broadcast on WION World is One.
My pleasure. Good morning.
While Iran says that it wouldn't return to nuclear talks while being under attack, Israel has insisted that it will keep targeting Iranian nuclear sites until they are completely dismantled. And while all of this is brewing, we have President Donald Trump, who has given Tehran a 2-week ultimatum, hinting at possible US strikes even sooner. Now, taken together, these positions appear fundamentally incongruent. Someone has to blink first, but from all the signs that we're getting, it suggests that the US and Israel are working overtime to ensure that it's Iran. Now, my question is, how long can Iran continue to hold the line under such pressure?
That's the key question, isn't it? I mean, the mullahs in Tehran have dug their heels in and they said, look, we're under attack and we won't give up. There's no way we're going to surrender. That clearly Israel has a superior military force. Nevertheless, you have to take into account that Iran is a massive country and that it has significant missile battalions that is going to fire back at Israel. And given also the distance between them, I mean, there are several countries in between, that Israeli can't put ground forces into the theater. It has to do everything airily, using its air force. Seems to me that, that the Israelis can inflict significant damage on the Iranian economy, on the country, which it has, of course, already done, but that it can't win a decisive military victory, and that Iran's just going to dig in and fire rockets back, and this will just drag on into a very messy, drawn-out, protracted war that could easily spill over into neighboring countries, and then you have a regional war. So we're waiting to see. There's lots of pressure on Tehran to do a deal, but as I said, as long as they're under attack, same is the case in Ukraine, that they won't give up, that they will do everything they can to fight back. And these talks will go nowhere for the meantime.
Absolutely. And also, amidst calls for de-escalation, now France has called on Iran to return to the table even as the strikes continue. But, of course, that doesn't seem like what Iran is going to consider going forward, especially at this point in time. And in the latest, we know a senior IRGC commander has suggested that key nuclear assets have already been relocated. Now, according to US-based think tanks like ISW and CTP, the Islamic Republic may be deliberately invoking the specter of a long and possibly futile hunt for the hidden nuclear materials. Now, is this Tehran's way of shifting the goalpost in the negotiations at this point? Or could this calculated ambiguity win Iran some diplomatic leverage if it comes back to the negotiating table?
I think to understand this, you have to consider what's at stake. That Israel is attacking purportedly because it sees an imminent threat of Iran producing a nuclear weapon. And until the war started, that was a potential threat, in so much as they have uranium enriched to 60% and they need 90%, but they hadn't taken the last step. Now that the war started, now that the nuclear uranium enrichment facilities are being specifically targeted, then that changes the whole calculus, doesn't it? In so much as that Iran has this as its ultimate bargaining chip, it's uranium. And that now that Israel is actually trying to destroy that, then Iran is going to hide that enriched uranium. The IAEA has already reported that 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium that it's been monitoring has disappeared. It's been moved somewhere safe. And of course, all the facilities are underground. But the motivation for the Iranian government previously was to use the potential of enriching uranium as a bargaining chip in order to get sanctions relief, in order to do a new deal. But now it's under attack. The motivation has changed. Now the motivation clearly is that it has to build a bomb as fast as it can, because once it's nuclear enabled, then Israel has to step back because of this existential threat that Bibi's talking about. And it will do that. And now it's going to play for time in order to finish the enriching, to bring it to 90%, and then to threaten, at least, to build a bomb. I mean, there's various stages in this that it can do, cards it can play. But once it can threaten to build a bomb, then that changes everybody's calculus and makes the whole situation far more dangerous.
Absolutely, and that organically leads me to the next question. You've partially answered it while addressing this concern, but just to get into more details now, that Israel claims that strikes have set back Iran's nuclear program by 2 or at least 3 years. And with Foreign Minister Gideon Saar hailing the offensive as having delivered very significant results, now there's this growing concern that you've also voiced, Ben, that the strategy might backfire, and instead of deterring Tehran, it could actually harden its resolve and accelerate the push towards a nuclear weapon. Now, given that this eventuality actually materializes, what are we looking at? What do we have on our hands?
Exactly. The fundamental problem here is that destroying these enrichment facilities, and everyone's concentrated on Fordo because it's the deepest and most difficult to get at, even if you blow that up, at the end of the day, Iran has all the pieces it needs to make a bomb. It's got uranium, it's got enrichment facilities. If those are destroyed, they can be rebuilt. Technologically, they're complicated, but it's not super difficult to do it. And that if you blow everything up today, then they're just going to rebuild them. They have the science as well, the scientists to do it. And it means that, you could push the nuclear program down the road by 2 years, but you haven't solved the fundamental problem. Moreover, you've given, as I said before, the government in Tehran the motivation now to build a bomb because, as we've seen in the war in Russia, no one's prepared to take Russia on directly because it's nuclear armed. No one's prepared to take North Korea on directly because it's nuclear armed. And so Tehran is going to want to get a bomb. And if you push the program back by 2 years, fine, then you're safe for 2 years. But in 2 years' time, they will produce a bomb. And then that's fundamentally destabilizing. And Israel faces the same existential threat. But having fought a war with Israel, the motivation for Tehran to actually use its bomb has gone up several notches. And so it's actually in a worse off position that they've thrown away their best negotiation cards, which is to do a deal based on the Jakpora deal that was already done. And that's the other irony of this war. They're talking about doing a deal, but a nuclear deal was already done and agreed. And moreover, Iran was complying with it. And it was Trump himself who tore that deal up. And now he's giving Tehran 2 weeks to do another deal when there was a perfectly good deal in place already. So in order to walk all of this back, de-escalation is the answer, diplomacy is the answer, that there is no military solution. There is no way of destroying Iran's nuclear program completely. All you can do, the best you can do, is push it 2 years down the road, and then we're exactly back where we started.
Right, and having said that, now Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has expressed skepticism about whether Tehran can even trust the United States in diplomatic talks, and if it were to consider that route. But in an interview with NBC News, Araghchi has accused Washington of using the talks as a cover for Israeli attacks on Iran. And now, of course, it all hinges on US overtly getting involved in the conflict. And when it does that, given the current trajectory that we're on, how do you expect the situation to unfold in West Asia?
Well, that's another wild card, isn't it? That Trump is mercurial, that he tends to make things, as we've, what we're learning from watching him operate, he tends to make things on a whim, that he doesn't do deep strategic thinking, he doesn't understand the ins and outs of Middle Eastern politics, that he comes in with basically a big stick and he's like, I order you to do this, or we're going to use America's exceptional military power to force you by bombing you. But again, I mean, the various wars, Iraq being the obvious one, and the parallels there are quite obvious to this one, that, the US power is not absolute and that it can't just force people. And he's afraid, Trump, of getting dragged into another forever war. I mean, if you remember going into the elections, Trump was promising to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. And not only did that not happen, but that war has got worse in the meantime after 100 days of negotiations. And here we have another war. So rather than stopping wars, he's actually engendering wars and now threatening to take the US into this war, which if it gets involved would be another forever war in the Middle East. And he really doesn't want to do that. So he's pushing very hard for some sort of negotiated settlement. But as we just discussed, I think once the Americans commit to this, that this war is just going to drag on, that I don't see Iran backing down, and then the possibility they'll start striking US bases in other countries comes up very quickly, and then you've got a regional war, and it's going to be as bad, if not worse, than the Iraqi war. So, I mean, Trump's backed himself, he's painted himself into a corner, but I think fundamentally, he really doesn't want to get involved, that the Israelis are pushing very hard to get the US involved. Because simply, as you mentioned in your report, that Israel doesn't have the bunker-busting bombs to hit things like Frodo, and you need specifically B-2 stealth bombers to drop those bombs. So that leaves Israel with the only option that it has then is to do land-based special forces operation, which it will do, but that also gets very bloody. And even if the Americans do come in and bomb Frodo, then as I explained, that it doesn't solve the fundamental problem. They could, in theory, blow everything up, and all the Iranians will do is rebuild it as soon as they can.
Absolutely, Ben. And of course, we'll have to wait and see how the situation pans out before we say anything conclusive about the escalation in West Asia. But for now, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Always a pleasure.